I still can't believe that my biological parents abandoned me in a hotel in another city, 1,000 miles away from my hometown. I find it absurd. After all, I am their biological daughter, I thought. What's the difference between me and orphans? I started to crying uncontrollably at that moment. The ringtone of my phone suddenly pulled my thoughts back. It was a message from my mom. What do you mean by commenting like that to your sister? She's so upset that she cried. Hurry up and apologize to her or we will never forgive you. Next came a message from Dad. Your sister had a heart attack and that's why we left. It happened suddenly so we didn't inform you. Don't take it to heart. I put down my phone and looked at the family walking by the sea, suddenly losing the strength to argue. Could it be that Bonnie has developed intuition, able to sense that her heart condition is about to flare up? I had long said that she was faking illness, but unfortunately no one believed me. From the day she came to my house, all the joyful and important moments in my life were ruined by her using her heart condition as an excuse. No matter how many times I say it, Mom and Dad will always drop everything and run towards Bonnie without looking back once. I didn't like my parents always revolving around her, so I simply buried myself in my studies. Now that I just graduated from high school, I finally earned a trip with my grades. In just one day it was effortlessly ruined again by Bonnie, but my parents made me apologize and said don't take it to heart. I didn't respond, not like before when I would make a big fuss, forcing my parents to admit they loved me, begging them to come back and be with me. I suddenly felt curious. Do other people's children also need to constantly seek confirmation of their parents' love like I do? I pursed my lips and thought for a few seconds, unable to come up with an answer, but my gaze involuntarily turned towards a family by seaside. Mom and Dad held their little daughter by the hand, one on each side. The girl looked very small, probably around 3 or 4 years old. When Bonnie first came to my house, I was 6 years old. Before that, my parents would also hold my hand and walk with me like this. I wanted to laugh a little, but tears fell one after another. I opened my phone and deleted that comment, then returned to the hotel room alone. I spent a week playing by the sea. Once I had always wanted to see the sea. After the college entrance examination results came out, my parents asked me what reward I wanted. I said without hesitation that I hoped they would take me to see the sea. They hesitated for a long time before agreeing, not for any other reason but because Bonnie's health was poor and she was not suited for long journeys. After my repeated pleas, my parents finally relented. I wanted to take a family photo by the sea and write our names in the sand. Before we set off, I even fantasized that if my mom was in a good mood, we could have a fireworks display by the sea. But I never imagined the outcome would be like this. The sea is something I see alone. A week later, the prepaid hotel bill was due. Perhaps it was the hotel reminder that made my parents remember that, thousands of miles away, they had a daughter like me. Mom sent a text asking, "Are you having fun? If you want to play for a few more days, that's fine. I'll transfer you some money." With the text message came the information of the bank card deposit. I looked at the newly added balance of 50,000 and slowly typed a reply. "The sea is beautiful. I've had enough fun. I'm going home today." The reply came quickly. "Play for a few more days. Because of your response, Bonnie has been in a bad mood. She doesn't want to see you right now." Simple 2 lines of text almost pierced through my heart. Bonnie is really powerful. She can decide outcome of my trip. I once thought that nothing could be more heartbreaking than waking up to find that my biological parents had left without a word. I was wrong. It turns out there were many things that can be even more heartbreaking. I still went ahead and cancelled my reservation, made plans by myself and set off to many places. I played outside for 2 weeks, and my parents' adopted daughter Bonnie finally calmed down. "My parents are finally willing to let me come home," Dad said this. "Bonnie has already forgiven you. When you come back, be careful not to provoke your sister again." I have now arrived in the northeast, and as I gaze at the forest that blocks up the sky and sun, my mind suddenly feels incredibly expansive. I wasn't angry, nor did I make a fuss. I quickly typed a reply. "I'll go back a few days later so as not to provoke her delicate heart again." After sending the message, I put down my phone and fully immersed myself in nature. I never knew there were such vast forests in the world. I suddenly became a bit enlightened, why I had to confine myself to a small world, in the past competing for my parents' affection with a strange person, who could feign illness at any moment. The time spent on my biased parents is waste of my life. I should spend my time on, walking on the road. There are many beautiful things in the world waiting for me to discover. Thinking this way, I no longer felt sad. Instead, I began to observe every blade of grass and every tree along the way. It wasn't until lunchtime that I returned to the hotel and discovered I had more than 10 missed calls on my phone. Half of it is from Mom and Dad, the other one is from Bonnie. I didn't rush to return the call. Instead, I clicked into the inbox. As I expected, Mom was blaming me again, and Dad was comparing me to Bonnie. Why do you say that about Bonnie? She is your sister. Stop competing for affection like a child. We are your biological parents. Isn't that enough? When will you learn to be understanding like Bonnie? I am really disappointed in you. Scrolling down further, there was a message from Bonnie. Sister, I'm really sorry. It's all my fault for being unwell. Mom and Dad were worried about me, which is why I came back. Can you please not be mad at me? I pressed my lips together and replied to the three of them, one by one, indifferent. I'm not angry, so stop overthinking it. I'll go back when I've had enough fun. Not long after, the phone received another transfer notification. Right after that was a text from Mom. Then you should relax a bit. I was a bit anxious just now. This was how they were every time, trying to intimidate me. They scolded me for Bonnie. They would then slip me some pocket money. This was their way of expressing reconciliation. I know she is waiting for me to write a short essay, replying to explain that I am not angry with them, and then reflecting on my own mistakes. But I didn't reply at all. I was thinking that after college there wouldn't be many opportunities to go out and have fun. The places I want to go, I want to enjoy by myself. I returned home a month later, and when I opened the door, my mom was serving fruit to Bonnie. Seeing me suddenly return, the expressions on their faces were delightful. Bonnie pouted unhappily while my mom looked somewhat surprised. She casually set down the fruit quickly, walked to my side and reached out to tuck a stray hair behind my ear. Elena, how did you get so tanned? I returned a polite smile. Perhaps there were too many places to go and I didn't apply sunscreen properly. With my answer, the living room suddenly became very quiet. Mom walked into the kitchen a bit awkwardly. Don't touch your sister's fruit, okay? Dad specially bought it for her from far away. I'll wash you a plate of something else. I stood at the door in a daze, then casually looked down to change my shoes. No need to trouble yourself. I won't eat. Mom suddenly walked out of the kitchen, her expression dark. Welcome to Love Story. Elena, you shouldn't take it out on your sister as soon as you come back. She's not well and you should be accommodating to her. I looked at Bonnie with some confusion and she gave me a victorious smile. I suddenly understood. It was my words just now that had caused them to misunderstand. I smiled indifferently. I said I wouldn't eat because I couldn't buy a plane ticket this time. I came back and took a train for over 10 hours, so I'm very tired now, have no appetite and want to go rest, so don't misunderstand. After saying that, I went straight back to my room with my luggage. Mom rarely held me back and there was an unfamiliar look of apology on her face. Elena, you don't misunderstand. Mom didn't know. Well, I spent a month alone outside, but she never asked about my situation, so she doesn't know where I went, nor does she know that I came back today. It's quite reasonable. Thinking this, I nodded perfunctorily. I didn't misunderstand. I went back to my room as soon as I said that. I was going to leave. My mother didn't let go. Instead, she held me even tighter. Elena, when you've rested well, remember to tell me where you'd been. I was extremely tired, and after responding with a good, I opened the bedroom door. However, the scene before me suddenly revived my wary mind. My collection of books was thrown all over the place, and Bonnie's dirty clothes were haphazardly draped over the coat rack. Even the teddy bear was torn and tattered. My mother, who was following behind me, watched this scene and seemed to want to say something, but before she could speak, Bonnie, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly clutched her chest and collapsed. My mother shot me a fierce glare, then ran straight to Bonnie, helping her up. While dialing the emergency number during the wait for the ambulance, my mother scolded me within annoyed tone. Why do you bully your sister as soon as you come back? Elena, what do you want me to Do to make you happy. I didn't rush to defend myself like before. Instead, I calmly looked at my furious mother. I had only said a few words since I walked through the door, although Bonnie ruined my room. I didn't even glance at her. What did I do wrong? My mother was left speechless by my question, suddenly frozen in place at that moment. Bonnie, who had just been with her eyes tightly closed, suddenly opened them and grabbed her sleeve. Mom, I'm so scared that my sister will be angry. So scared that my sister won't like me. Hearing Bonnie's words, Mom's expression turned cold again. If anything happens to Bonnie, I'll hold you responsible. I nodded casually. Sure, I know that. Bonnie is perfectly fine. She just doesn't want our parents' gaze to fall on me even for a second. But she doesn't know that it no longer matters to me now. If you love to pretend to be sick so much, then go ahead and do it. Just as well now that you all have left, I can rest in peace. After the two of them left, I took a nice hot shower, and then threw Bonnie's things out the door, including my teddy bear. That was a birthday gift my parents gave me when I was very young, and I kept it for over 10 years. I will patiently clean it and hold it while I sleep every day. It seems that this way I can return to the time when I had my parents' undivided attention, but it doesn't matter anymore. I climbed into bed and fell into a deep sleep. When I woke up, there was no one at home. Looking at the summer training invitation sent by college on my phone, I thought for a few seconds, then agreed. If it were in the past, I definitely wouldn't go. Bonnie wouldn't allow me to be anywhere above her, otherwise she would cry and throw a fit, having a heart attack every time this happens. My parents always look at me with disappointment and sigh. Over time, I got used to hiding my brilliance, afraid to show my strengths in front of my family. It's not that I'm afraid of Bonnie, I just don't want to see my parents troubled by these trivial matters. But now I suddenly don't want to endure any longer. If I can't have my parents' love, so be it. Other things that are meant to be mine are mine. The training started a week later. 2 days after that, Bonnie recovered, and her parents took her home. Seeing me, my mother looked a bit uncomfortable. Elena, how have you been at home by yourself these past couple of days? As her mother spoke, Bonnie flashed a provocative smile behind her. I found it quite boring. I glanced at them once and then turned my attention back to the presentation. It was nice, quiet, and undisturbed. The atmosphere in the living room fell silent in an instant. My parents didn't say a word, seemingly waiting for me to vent my frustrations, as if we were going to argue like before. But I didn't. Instead, I immersed myself completely in my studies. I don't know how much time has passed. I felt a bit tired, so I took off my headphones and went to the kitchen to cut a plate of mangoes. As I passed by the tea table, Dad instinctively reached out his hand to me. I replied with some surprise, "This is my ordinary fruit. Bonnie's imported fruit is in the fridge. I haven't touched it." Dad's expression stiffened. "Elena, that's not what I meant." I suddenly realized in the past, to make a good impression in front of my parents, I would always try to do some clever little things, and cutting fruit was one of them. But today my mind is completely on the course materials, and I've totally forgotten about this matter. As I hesitated, Bonnie pretentiously spoke up. "Dad, I want to eat oil-raised prawns tonight." Dad immediately turned to look at Bonnie and replied eagerly, "Okay, then I'll go buy groceries now." Bonnie smiled at me slightly upon hearing that, and I shrugged nonchalantly, saying nothing. Before returning to the computer, the fruit I cut for myself is really sweet. When Dad came back, I had already turned off the computer and was curled up on the sofa in the living room, resting. Bonnie glanced at her father and said unhappily, "Dad, what's wrong with you? Why did you put my sister's fruit together again?" Dad's voice was a bit awkward. "Bonnie, our family can afford it, so from now on you and Elena will eat the same." After speaking, Dad looked at me with a hint of guilt. His actions left me feeling a bit confused. Once, they always said that Bonnie's health was poor, and the food she ate had to be carefully selected. I have caused a scene countless times, yet I have not received equal treatment from my parents. They only scold me for not knowing how to be modest, and for being too selfish. I clearly explained that there was enough money at home to treat us equally, but all I received in return was my mother's cold face, and my father's sighs. "What's wrong today?" I didn't move, nor did I speak. Bonnie glared at me fiercely, then clutched her chest and collapsed. I jumped up from the sofa, took a step back and spread my hands. I didn't do anything. I didn't say anything. The fruit isn't what I wanted. You can handle it yourselves. After speaking, I didn't look at my parents' reactions and returned to my room, gently closing the door. They didn't rush to take Bonnie to the hospital. Instead, they banged on my room door loudly. I quietly opened the door and calmly looked at my mom, who was on the verge of an outburst. You should take Bonnie to the hospital first. After all, she's been putting on quite the act. I feel like there's nothing wrong with what I'm saying, but my mom is so angry that her face is flushed. Elena, your dad and I have already treated you fairly. What more do you want, to be honest? I really don't know what she's angry about. I once asked you to treat us equally and you repeatedly refused. Now buying the same fruit wasn't my suggestion, yet you want to take it out on me. Why? Dad walked over with a helpless expression and sighed deeply. Elena, apologized to your mother. After all, Bonnie fell ill because of you. I couldn't be bothered to argue with them, so I deeply bowed to my mother. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have come back to this home. It's all my fault. Hurry and take your precious daughter to the hospital. If you wait any longer, she might just recover. After saying that, I ignored my mother's displeased expression and closed the door again. They didn't seem to leave. Instead, they started arguing in the living room. I didn't intentionally listen, but a sentence or two still reached my ears. Elena is becoming more and more unreasonable, trying to force us to compromise in this way. Clearly we have already gone along with her wishes, yet she still takes advantage and plays the victim. I was stunned for a moment, and then suddenly understood. They feel that I am different from before, that I am deliberately not competing or fighting for anything. Wanting them to know that I am angry. I don't quite understand. When I fight, they blame me for fighting. When I don't fight, they blame me for not fighting in. I simply put on my earplugs and continued reading. By the time I grew tired of reading, the sky had already darkened. The living room is empty with nothing in it. I was a bit hungry, and when I went downstairs to buy some food, I ran into my dad, who was coming back. Seeing the snacks I was holding, he frowned slightly. Elena, don't eat this anymore. Mom will be back soon to make you dinner herself. As soon as he finished speaking, he was about to throw away the fried rice in my hand. I quickly took a couple of steps back to avoid my dad's movement. No need. The last time you said that I waited at home all day, starving to the point of low blood sugar, and no one came back. Hearing this, Dad sighed, while pinching his brow. Elena, I know that during this time Mom and Dad haven't paid much attention to you, and you feel uncomfortable. But you must understand Bonnie's health is not good, and what we are doing is also for you. At this point he looked at me with piercing eyes. I nodded. Yeah, got it. If there's nothing else, I'll head back first. Seeing that I was about to leave, Dad reached out to stop me. We were in such a hurry earlier that we forgot to bring Bonnie's previous medical records. Can you help me get them? I smiled and replied, all right. After finishing dinner, I opened my computer and familiarized myself with the summer camp curriculum once again, immersed in the things I love. Time flew by quickly. When I turned off my phone to get some rest, I was startled by my mom sitting on the sofa. I looked at her in surprise. How did you come back? The displeasure in my mother's gaze was evident, as she pointed to the takeout boxes on the table that hadn't been put away yet. Didn't I say I would cook for you when I got back? What do you mean by this? I stood there, not knowing what to say. After a few seconds of awkwardness, I stepped forward to clean up the trash. It's nothing much. If I'm hungry, I'll just eat first. Mom stared at me as if she had something to say, but in the end she didn't speak. Once they often said, we will accompany Bonnie. If you're hungry, just eat something on your own. Nowadays I am clearly doing things according to their wishes, yet she is still angry. I packed up the trash, didn't look at my mother again, and turned back to my room. The next day Mom and Dad brought Bonnie back. This is indeed beyond my expectations. After all, in the past, her illness would change according to the level of concern my parents showed towards me. If my parents are a little nicer to me, she gets sick for a day or two. If my parents praise me a bit more, she will take a few extra days to be sick, based on the level of concern Dad showed us by buying the same fruits. I thought she would stay for at least half a month, but coming back is just coming back. Anyway, I'll be leaving in a few days. Seeing that I had Packed my bags in advance. My parents were quite surprised, but then their expression turned to anger. Don't think that running away from home will make us care about you more, I sighed. Helplessly, it was an event at university, and as students with good grades we could participate early, similar to a summer camp. Seeing me say this, my parents were somewhat incredulous. Then why didn't you say so earlier? Such a big matter, such a long journey. How can you go by yourself? When it comes to this, I haven't even refuted them, and they were already stunned. They seemed to suddenly remember that just a few days ago, they had left me all alone at a strange seaside. In fact, this is not the first time they have left me behind. Bonnie is a year younger than me, so she started school a year later. The year I was in the first year of junior high, she was in the 6th grade. On the day of the parent-teacher meeting, my parents all went to the elementary school, and no one came to pick me up from the junior high. Later, when we were a bit older, we returned to our hometown together. Bonnie was unwell, and they hurriedly took her back to the provincial capital, leaving me at home for half a month. Later, after high school, a sudden snowstorm hit, and they coincidentally went to Bonnie's school. I was trapped in a power outage at the training class for the entire night. I had mentioned all these things in advance, but they never remembered. But now I have to report early, and yet they blame me. Thinking of these sad memories, my expression was not good, and for some reason my parents looked at me with faces full of guilt. The two exchanged a glance, and Dad spoke up first. Elena, there were indeed some things we didn't handle well in the past. Before he could finish his words, a loud cry came from the kitchen. Mom, Dad, it hurts so much. Dad's words abruptly stopped, leaving me behind. As they turned and rushed into the kitchen, I lifted my foot and followed over carefully. Looking for a long time before I noticed the small wound on Bonnie's finger, but my parents were as if facing a great enemy. One went to get the medicine box while the other anxiously comforted. Seeing me standing at the kitchen door, my mother opened her mouth. I didn't wait for her to speak and turned back to my room. The next day, when I woke up, everyone was gone as usual. I went downstairs to buy my breakfast, eating while reading a book until noon. They still hadn't returned. I didn't ask and had lunch alone. It wasn't until the afternoon break, when I picked up my phone to scroll through my social media, that I realized today is Bonnie's birthday. And also my birthday. Bonnie was adopted on my birthday, and to show fairness, my parents said Bonnie's birthday to be the same day as mine, but later their attention gradually shifted to Bonnie. I became the mere backdrop at every birthday party, looking at the 3 smiling faces in the photo. I quietly put down my phone. This is better, avoiding the situation where 4 of us gathered together and no one is happy. I ordered a cake for myself through delivery, and it's my favorite strawberry flavor. When I closed my eyes to make a wish for myself, my mom suddenly sent a message. Elena, we will be back soon. Bonnie is throwing a tantrum. Let's spend more time with her. Don't take it to heart. I not only don't mind, but I also hope they can come back a little later. Otherwise, I really don't know what kind of nonsense Bonnie will come up with next to waste my time. When Mom and Dad came back, they brought half a cake and cheerfully pushed it in front of me. Elena, today is your birthday too. Happy birthday to you. I politely thanked them and did not take their cake. Mom looked at me in surprise. Cut the cake, Elena. We specially brought it back for you. I pointed to the dining table. Thank you, but I have already eaten. Dad noticed the atmosphere was off and came to smooth things over. Elena, this is specially chosen for you by your sister, Mom and Dad. You should at least take a bite. I nodded, opened the box and frowned as I pushed it away. Mom and Dad, I don't eat blueberries. With my words, my mother opened her mouth in surprise, and then a look of guilt appeared on her face. It's all our parents' fault. They were too busy today and forgot. The 2 exchanged a glance and Dad continued, Elena, how about this tomorrow? Mom and Dad will make up for your birthday. I raised my head in some confusion. I used to care a lot about this outsider Bonnie taking away my parents' love, and I was unwilling to share my parents with her on my birthday. From the age of 6 to adulthood, I have said countless times that I wanted to celebrate my birthday apart from Bonnie, but Mom and Dad never agreed. Bonnie got heart disease because of you. You have to treat her like a real sister, and not engage in this kind of comparison. Bonnie Hasn't minded yet, so why are you throwing a tantrum? 1 year out of spite I refused to go out with them. The result was that the three of them happily spent a joyful day, while the young me stayed at home hungry for the entire day. When they got home and saw me curled up in the room, crying, instead of comforting me they scolded me together. It's all your fault, it should have been a happy day but you had to throw a tantrum, and now Bonnie couldn't enjoy herself properly. Nowadays I no longer look forward to celebrating my birthday with my parents, yet they have taken the initiative to suggest a belated celebration. I shook my head without thinking. No, I don't need it. My birthday is today, not tomorrow. Mom and Dad looked very grim, but they didn't insist anymore. In the following days they seemed to become cautious around me. Not only will they wake me up, but they will also, like they do with Bonnie, place my favorite dishes in a beautiful bowl and push it in front of me. Bonnie no longer received special treatment, always throwing tantrums and her heart ACHD a few more times, but now her parents did not take her to the hospital right away. Instead they frowned and asked if it was really that serious. Bonnie no longer had an audience to cheer her on, and the heart disease act was no longer performed. Mom and Dad looked at me as if expecting praise, as if waiting for me to say something, but the words I wanted to say had long been exhausted in the past. Bonnie indeed has a heart condition. When she was just adopted I was careless and pushed her a little while we were playing, and it just so happened that she had a heart attack. My parents were on high alert, scolding me harshly, and later they repeatedly mentioned how I almost caused my sister's death. Since then, whenever anything did not go according to Bonnie's wishes, she would faint on the spot, but on ordinary days she would bounce around, showing no signs of illness at all. I refused to accept it and told my parents that she was faking illness, but what I received in return were cold stares and scoldings time and again. Gradually, heart disease seemed to become Bonnie's weapon. When my parents want to praise me for my top grades, she will have an outburst. I won first place in the sports meet, and when I brought the certificate home, she would have an outburst. I was cleaning the house, and when I ran in front of my parents to take credit, she would also explode. Slowly, under my parents' indulgence, I became the unnecessary one in the family. I think my parents can see it, but they just feel sorry for Bonnie, having lost her biological parents at such a young age, so they are particularly indulgent. But me, I clearly have parents, yet I am not as good as an orphan. Fortunately, the trip to the seaside suddenly made me understand a person can also be happy and joyful. A few more days passed and I continued to be polite to my parents, but they grew increasingly anxious once they could throw me alone 1,000 miles away. But now they want to take me shopping at the mall. When Mom smiled and suggested taking me to buy new clothes, I hadn't thought of a reason to refuse, and Bonnie fell down again. Mom looked at the struggling Bonnie with a cold expression. Bonnie, Elena is also your dad and Mom's child. You can't always be like this. In these years we have given you a lot of love. Your dad and I know that you lack a sense of security, so we will show you a bit more care. But, Bonnie, you must know that Elena is our biological daughter. Bonnie looked at her mother with eyes full of shock, her eyelids instantly turning red, but as she opened her mouth, she truly collapsed. Dad watched from the side, his voice somewhat serious. Bonnie, you're not a child anymore. Stop buying for attention like this. A few minutes later, Bonnie still hadn't gotten up. Mom and Dad were worried again. They didn't even glance at me sitting beside them, picking up Bonnie and running down the stairs. I stood by the window watching my dad's car speed away, and sighed. I no longer cared about what was real or what was not. I went to a class reunion. A group of people laughed and chat added, and before we knew it, it was already past 9 o'clock. It was only when I came out of the restaurant that I noticed a string of missed calls on my phone. They were all from my dad and Mom. In that moment of daze, Dad's call came through again. I calmly answered the phone, but my dad on the other end was very anxious. He hardly spoke, as if explaining something. Elena, Bonnie is really sick this time. They'll throw a tantrum once she gets out of the hospital. Mom and Dad will take you shopping for clothes. I smiled helplessly and said, no need. I'm leaving tomorrow. The other end of the phone suddenly fell into a long silence. I thought it was a bad signal, so I pressed hang up. But just as I put the phone in my pocket, it vibrated again. I frowned and took out my phone. This time it was my mom. Elena, why aren't you home? Where have you gone? This surprised me a bit. Bonnie is sick. How could her parents, who are so infatuated with their beloved daughter, bear to come home to be with me? But I politely told her my location. I just finished a dinner with my classmates and I am at the Goldman Sachs Hotel. Mom's tone was hurried. Then wait for me, I'll come to pick you up now. Take me? I find it hard to believe because since I started middle school they have never picked me up again, no matter the heavy rain, no matter the blizzard I go to, and from school all by myself. I can hardly remember what color the decorations in my dad's car were. Thinking of this, I opened my mouth to refuse. No need, I can go back by myself, but my mother, who usually finds me troublesome, spoke in a firm tone. I have already said set off and will arrive soon. I said goodbye to my classmates and sat alone at the entrance of the restaurant until 10:30. It was clearly a summer night, but I felt so cold. I stood up, called a taxi, and went back home. The next day, Mom and Dad didn't come back. No phone calls, no messages. I set off alone with my luggage, gently closing the door just like countless times before. It was nothing special. The summer camp schedule was packed and I met many equally outstanding classmates, because some projects involve confidentiality. We all have to hand in our phones 7 days later. When I opened my phone again, I was instantly overwhelmed by countless text messages, leaving my hands numb. It's all messages from Mom and Dad. Elena, where have you gone? Why did you leave by yourself? Bonnie's condition has suddenly worsened. Are you safe? Please reply upon receiving this. Elena or you. Blaming us. But at that time Bonnie was in a dangerous situation, and we had to stay with her. Stop sulking and reply quickly. Elena, you weren't like this before. Can you not shut down over something trivial? I helpless returned a call and the other side connected instantly. Mom's voice was tinged with tears. Elena, where on earth have you gone? What does the letter on the table mean? I pressed my lips together. I am attending a training session, as I mentioned to you before, and due to confidentiality my phone is turned off. After listening, Mom continued, Elena, you weren't like this before. Why didn't you wait for your dad and me to take you? I feel quite helpless by the time you return. It might be too late. Mom paused for a few seconds, sighed, and said, so have you finished your training now? Mom bought you a ticket. Come back quickly. Bonnie's condition has improved. Last time I promised to buy you clothes and to pick you up. I interrupted directly. No, I'm quite busy here. I don't have time to go back. I'll buy my own clothes. But Elena, 3 days from now is Dad's birthday. Hearing these words, my heart felt as if it had suddenly been pierced. Every year I carefully prepare gifts for my parents, whether it's Father's Day, Mother's Day, or their birthdays. But no matter what I prepared, in their eyes it was not as good as a casual blessing from Bonnie. Thinking of this, I coldly interrupted my mother. No, I have to start school soon. I'm very busy. Having said that, I hung up the phone. To my surprise, I didn't go back and they actually came, and there are only Mom and Dad, no Bonnie. As soon as they saw me, Mom and Dad hurried over. Elena, we know that over the years, because of Bonnie's illness, we've given her more attention than you, and you're not happy about it, but Mom and Dad will always love you the most. This letter. They spoke as they handed over the letter. I had left. I didn't answer. That was the proof of the termination of parental rights, that I had someone help me draft. Seeing my indifferent expression, my mother's tears fell. Elena, no matter what, we are still your parents, even if we care more about Bonnie. You cannot just give up on the blood ties that bind us, the bond of blood thicker than water. I numbly recalled the bits and pieces of my growth process. I felt nothing at all. Seeing that I had no reaction, Dad's eyes also turned. How I once longed for my parents' favoritism. Even if there was no favoritism, fairness would have sufficed. But there isn't any, so I don't want it anymore. In the midst of silence, Dad's phone rang sharply. It was Bonnie. She was crying on the other end of the phone, saying she was in so much pain and wanted her parents to be with her. Dad carefully observed my expression and coldly spoken into the phone. You're almost an adult, can't you even call 120 by yourself? After finishing, Dad hung up the phone and reached out to grab me. I shook my head and silently returned to school. After this, they did not contact me for a long time. Half a month later, Mom sent a message saying that Bonnie had recovered after surgery. I didn't reply. Bonnie spent her whole life using her heart disease as an excuse to suppress me. In the end, she had a minor surgery, then she fully recovered. After that, my parents often came to school to see me. Each time we met, my attitude was polite but distant. Later, in order to see me more often, they even sold the house and bought a new one next to the school. They say they owe me too much from the past, and now want to make it up to me properly, but I really don't need it anymore. I immerse myself every day in the subjects I love, spending all my time on campus. On the day I successfully passed my graduate entrance exam, my parents cornered me at the entrance of the restaurant to celebrate. They wanted to hold me back. Elena, you've lost weight. You've been studying hard lately, right? This is the soup that Mom and Dad made for you. It was your favorite to drink before. I shook my head. No thank you, I just ate. Mom's tears fell. Elena, Bonnie is no longer ill. Why are you still unwilling to forgive your parents? At this moment I suddenly didn't know what to say. Once they used Bonnie as a tool to suppress me constantly, comparing us and making me doubt myself at every moment. But now they look like victims. I shook my head and pushed away the outstretched hand. I learned to face everything on my own since middle school. Late concern I do not need. After saying that, I turned and got into the taxi. In the rearview mirror, my parents stood frozen in place, not moving for a long time. But I am no longer the little girl who wanted her parents' company. I am going to pursue a better future. They can live however they want and indulge Bonnie as they want. But I only have one goal: to stay away from toxic people and live my life well.